What was particularly striking in the aftermath of the Crockett-Scott exchange was how quickly it redefined the public perception of both lawmakers, not just in Washington, but nationwide. Jasmine Crockett, known for her sharp legal mind and uncompromising style, had already gained traction among progressive circles. But after this moment, her status shifted. She was no longer just a promising voice, she had become a force. And it wasn't merely because of the documents she presented, or the questions she asked, but because of the underlying message that pulsed through every word she spoke, that accountability in government was no longer optional. It was necessary, immediate, and personal. Meanwhile, Tim Scott, once floated as a potential VP pick and admired in many circles for his calm, composed demeanor, found himself struggling to shake off the silence that defined his response. He had spoken in platitudes. She had spoken in evidence. He leaned on reputation. She leaned on fact. The contrast couldn't have been starker. And as political analysts began unpacking the exchange on primetime panels, it was clear they sensed a tide turning. What Jasmine Crockett revealed wasn't just Scott's donor trail, it was the broader rot within American politics. The machinery behind legislative decisions. The quiet influence of corporate power. And once seen, it couldn't be unseen. In the days that followed, Crockett was inundated with media requests. From CNN to MSNBC, even The View reached out. But she chose her platforms carefully. Her first post-exchange appearance came on a Sunday politics program known for its deep dives. She walked onto the set with the same fierce confidence that had rocked the hearing room. "I didn't go after Tim Scott to score points," she clarified. "I did it because our people are tired of being lied to. Tired of politicians talking about opportunity while quietly selling out their communities for campaign checks." The interviewer nodded, visibly impressed. "You said during the exchange that you had former staffers who confirmed meetings with Liberty Consortium and influence over bill language. Has there been any formal request for investigation?" Crockett didn't hesitate. "There will be. I've already been in communication with the Oversight Committee. Because this isn't about one senator. It's about the system. And if we don't start pulling back the curtain now, we'll keep writing policies that hurt everyday Americans just to benefit a handful of billionaires." Her words struck a chord. Online, clips from the interview went viral. The hashtag Crockett exposés trend for 3 days. TikTok creators edited her sound bites into montage-style videos layered with booming music. Twitter threads dissected the financial ties she referenced in painful detail, each line drawing more public scrutiny toward Scott and the legislation he championed. And it wasn't just the internet that was on fire. Phone lines at Scott's offices were jammed. Constituents wanted answers. One woman from Charleston called into a local radio show and broke down in tears. "My son has asthma. We live right by one of those sites that Tim Scott's bill helped get built. We were told it would bring jobs. All we got was pollution." Stories like hers poured in, and soon journalists began investigating the real-world consequences of the deregulation Crockett had exposed. Meanwhile, inside Washington, things got more tense. Some of Scott's Republican colleagues tried to circle the wagons, calling Crockett's remarks divisive or grandstanding. But the problem was, none of them refuted the facts. Not one lawmaker could provide a legitimate counter-narrative to the documents Crockett had entered into public record. And that silence spoke volumes. The unspoken rule of protecting fellow members, regardless of party, had been broken. And Jasmine Crockett had broken it with style, conviction, and zero regrets. But Crockett wasn't finished. Back in her district, she held a town hall, standing before hundreds of supporters, speaking not from a teleprompter but from memory and experience. "If you think this is the last time I'm calling someone out for putting profit over people, you've got another thing coming," she declared. "Because every time they hide behind the illusion of economic freedom, while gutting the rights of workers, stripping protections for our kids, or poisoning our air and water, I'll be there, with the receipts." The crowd erupted into cheers. It wasn't just applause, it was relief, hope. Because here was a representative who didn't just speak for them, but with them, who brought their lived realities into the halls of power and made them impossible to ignore. And the more Crockett spoke, the more it became clear, this wasn't a one-time viral moment. It was the start of a new chapter. As for Tim Scott, his office tried to launch damage control. He appeared on several conservative talk shows, where hosts tried to paint Crockett as radical or angry. But even in those friendly spaces, He looked uncomfortable, defensive, and when asked directly about Omega Holdings or Liberty Consortium, his answers were vague, his confidence visibly shaken. The usual buzzwords, small government, freedom, growth, sounded hollow in contrast to Crockett's direct allegations. And then came the watchdog reports. Within weeks, multiple ethics groups announced inquiries into campaign donations linked to Omega Holdings. One report confirmed that a subsidiary of Liberty Consortium had, in fact, submitted policy language suggestions to Scott's office before the Commerce Infrastructure Bill was finalized. Another revealed that nearly 78% of Scott's donations in the past cycle came from industries that directly benefited from bills he helped pass. These weren't conspiracy theories. They were now being covered by Politico, The Hill, and Reuters. Crockett, meanwhile, continued her legislative work unfazed. When asked about the findings, she simply said, "It's about time someone connected the dots." But perhaps the most impactful moment came during another hearing weeks later. Crockett had been invited to speak on a panel regarding campaign finance reform. Sitting across from her was a veteran Republican congressman who began lecturing her about decorum and respecting tradition. She smiled, then calmly replied, "Respecting tradition is fine, when tradition respects the people. But I wasn't elected to protect comfort. I was elected to protect the truth." It was yet another viral moment. Students in universities quoted her. Young organizers posted the clip under slogans like "Truth Close Angle Bracket," "Tradition," and slowly but surely, the political culture started to shift. Other lawmakers, emboldened by Crockett's example, began releasing detailed transparency reports of their own. A few even returned questionable donations. It wasn't a revolution, but it was a crack in the wall. And back in South Carolina, things weren't going so smoothly for Scott. Challenges emerged. Some of them Republicans. Primary opponents questioned his judgment, asking why he hadn't responded more forcefully to the allegations. One campaign ad even used Crockett's footage. "If Tim Scott can't answer to her," it said, "how can he answer to you?" It was brutal, and yet, it was earned, because Scott had underestimated Crockett. Many did. They thought her fiery rhetoric was all performance. They didn't realize it was fueled by a lifetime of fighting systems built to silence voices like hers. They didn't realize that behind her smile was steel. And as America watched this new chapter unfold, the lesson became clearer. When the truth is buried, it takes someone willing to get loud, to risk backlash, to say what others won't. Crockett didn't just embarrass a senator. She exposed a system. She forced the nation to look, really look, at the relationship between policy and power, between money and morality. People began organizing under her words. Activists used clips from the exchange in training sessions. Young candidates cited her as inspiration for why they were running. "She didn't flinch," said one organizer. "She didn't back down. That's the kind of courage we need." Even international media began taking notice. A BBC segment highlighted Crockett's takedown as an example of growing populist accountability within American politics. In France, a political columnist referred to her as "La Voix du Peuple," the voice of the people. What started as a single exchange had become a global symbol of speaking truth to power. And through it all, Crockett stayed grounded. "I didn't do this for clicks," she said in one interview. "I did it because it's what my community deserves. We deserve clean air, fair wages, real representation, not empty suits and corporate scripts." By the end of the month, she had introduced new legislation aimed at closing lobbying loopholes, tightening disclosure laws, and preventing donors from ghostwriting policy. The bill, though expected to face strong opposition, was already generating buzz. And with her growing popularity, it was clear, even if it didn't pass, it had started a conversation that could no longer be ignored. She walked into Congress that day to ask hard questions. She walked out having changed the political landscape. And as her supporters continue to grow and her message echoes through halls far beyond Capitol Hill, one thing is certain: Jasmine Crockett isn't just part of the system anymore. She's reshaping it. And for Tim Scott, the memory of that moment, when all his words failed him, when the polished armor of political comfort shattered under the weight of undeniable truth, will follow him. Because when Jasmine Crockett stood, she didn't just speak, she roared, and the silence she left in her wake said everything. If this breakdown inspired you, If you are tired of politics as usual and want more fearless truth tellers like Jasmine Crockett to hold power accountable, make sure you like this video, subscribe to our channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a moment where real leadership stands tall. This is your moment. This is our movement. Stay informed, stay engaged, and always demand the truth.